In the quiet town of Ogbia, Bayelsa state, where the river never sleeps and secrets flow deeper than the tide, lived a man named Samuel Otasi. He was 42, lean, hardened by life, and always dressed in clean but faded clothes. Once upon a time, Samuel was a loving husband and father, but life had other plans. His marriage crumbled 3 years ago like a termite-eaten wall. Since the divorce, he hadn't spoken a kind word to Martha, his ex-wife. Not that she wanted one. Their fights used to echo through the walls. Until one day, she packed a small suitcase and walked out. Left behind were 3 sons, Daniel, Tamuno, and David, aged 14, 12, and 10 boys, who now tiptoed around their own home like shadows. Samuel had grown bitter, the kind of bitterness that snuck into your voice, your food, even your prayers. He rarely smiled, and when he did, it was often followed by shouting or slaps. The neighbors whispered. The boys flinched. But Samuel had found what he called peace in the Mountain of Divine Mercy Church, led by Prophet George, a self-declared man of God. Prophet George had charisma, no doubt. He walked barefoot sometimes, claiming the ground was holy. His words rolled off his tongue like fire and fear. Every Sunday, people brought alms, money, food, even cell phones to the altar, believing it would unlock their destiny. The prophet would speak in tongues, shake, scream, and hand out prophecies like raffle tickets. One time, he pointed at a woman in church and declared, "Your mother is a witch. She cursed your womb." Samuel believed everything he said. Prophet George was no ordinary preacher. He had a way of speaking that hooked your bones. When he called your name during service, you stopped breathing until he finished. And when he said God had revealed your secrets, you didn't question how he knew, only how much you'd need to give to fix it. Samuel had given a lot: bags of rice, bundles of cash, his old motorbike now parked behind the church. Still, the voices in his head hadn't stopped. His business had failed, his chest always felt tight, and his 3 boys barely looked him in the eye anymore. His life felt cursed. That evening, as the last light bled out from the sky, Prophet George called him aside. "Brother Samuel," he began, laying a firm hand on his shoulder, "you've been faithful, but the Spirit keeps showing me your house is crawling with darkness." Samuel nodded, slow and afraid. "It's Martha," George continued, voice deep and sharp. "Your ex-wife. She is a witch, a dangerous one. The kind that doesn't need broomsticks, just blood ties." Samuel's heart thudded. "You think she left you because she was unhappy?" George whispered. "Number, she left because her mission was complete. She cursed your path and planted the seed in your own children, your 3 boys." He paused, eyes narrowing. "They're not your sons anymore. They're tools of destruction." Samuel stood still. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. "They're bewitched, Samuel. That's why your blessings are blocked. That's why you see shadows in your dreams. That's why your chest tightens like a vice." The words slammed into Samuel like thunder. A chill danced along his spine. "You must act," George said, "before it's too late." Samuel walked home that evening with Prophet George's words rattling in his chest like a broken drum. The streetlights flickered as if they too were unsure of their own glow. He moved slowly, lost in a fog of thoughts, barely noticing the greetings of neighbors or the tug of his oldest son's voice, asking if he wanted dinner. He didn't answer. In his small, dimly lit room, he lay on his back and stared at the cracked ceiling. Outside, a nightbird cried. The prophet had spoken. His wife Martha was a witch. She had planted her darkness into their children. His 3 sons were not just rebellious, ungrateful boys. They were cursed, sent to ruin him. He turned on his side. The dusty fan above creaked, spinning heat instead of air. He thought about the years, how his petty trading business had collapsed overnight. how customers stopped coming, how goods expired on his shelves, untouched. He remembered the court battles, the insults Martha threw across the judge's bench, the way she stared at him without blinking, like she saw something beneath his skin. It all made sense now. Everything the pastor said was adding up. All these misfortunes, the debt, the shame, the sickness, they weren't coincidences. They were spiritual attacks. And his sons, they were the carriers. Samuel sat up, grabbed a worn Bible from his bedside table, and opened it to nowhere. The pages blurred. His mind was louder than scripture. "What do I do?" he whispered. "How do I cleanse this house?" He considered sending them back to Martha. Maybe she could take her own creations and bury them far away. But no, that wouldn't work. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share it with your friends. Also, hit the notification bell so you're the first to know when a new story is released. "Let's keep going," the pastor had warned him. The cursed ones don't need to be nearby to destroy. They would still reach him from her house, from the school, from anywhere. His fingers twitched. His eyes grew still. Then, like a shadow slipping in through the window, a thought crept in. The unthinkable. If the children were cursed, if they were tools built to destroy him, maybe they had to be removed, erased. The next morning broke with a strange stillness. The kind of morning where the birds seem slower to sing and the breeze holds its breath. Samuel rose from bed with a quiet urgency. His eyes were darker than usual, the bags beneath them deeper. He didn't bother with prayers or breakfast. He walked to the small wooden door that separated his room from the rest of the house, cracked it open, and peered into the dim corridor. "Daniel," he called out sharply. His eldest son stirred groggily from sleep on the faded foam mattress they all shared. "Yes, Daddy." Samuel stepped closer, voice low but firm. "Go to Mama Eby's shop. Ask for Sniper." Daniel blinked. "Sniper? What for?" The question hung in the air for half a second too long. Samuel's face twisted. "Go now, just do as I said." Daniel flinched at his father's tone. It was sharp, sudden, like a slap in the cold. He grabbed a plastic bag from the table and left, legs moving faster than usual, heart thudding quietly in his chest. The shopkeeper handed him the small bottle without a second look. Sniper was cheap, deadly, and always available. Back at home, Daniel gave his father the bottle. Samuel nodded without a word, disappeared back into his room, and locked the door behind him. Outside, the sun had started to rise, but something inside that house felt colder than it had the night before. The morning was still wrapped in velvet darkness when Samuel moved through the house like a shadow. Not a rooster had crowed, not even the neighborhood dogs had started their usual chorus. It was dawn, but barely the kind of hour that felt like night pretending to be morning. Samuel gently opened the creaking door to the boys' room. Daniel stirred first, rubbing his eyes and squinting into the dimness. "Daddy," he mumbled, "why are we waking up so early?" Samuel didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the window and pulled back the faded curtain. The moon hung low in the sky, casting pale light across the cracked floor. He turned and whispered, "Get up, we're going to church." Daniel blinked, confused. Church? At this hour? Still, no reply. Eby, curled like a question mark under his threadbare blanket, sat up, his eyes wide and innocent. "Will there be biscuits today?" he asked. Tamuno groaned and pulled the blanket over his head, already regretting waking up, but Samuel's silence was heavy like a lid on a boiling pot, and no one dared ask again. Soon, they were dressed and packed inside the old Toyota. The air inside the car felt like it had been vacuumed of sound. Only the hum of the engine filled their ears, and the occasional screech of tires cutting through still streets. They weren't just going to church. Not really. Samuel's grip tightened on the steering wheel. His mind was ticking like a metronome, counting down each tick a warning, each talk a prayer. The drive felt unusually long. The boys sat in silence, half asleep, half curious. Daniel, the oldest, stared out the window, his brows furrowing slowly. They weren't heading toward the church at Ogbia Junction. This road twisted deeper into unfamiliar territory, lined with thick bush, unmarked paths, and eerie quiet. "Daddy," Daniel asked softly, "why are we passing through the bush side? This isn't the church road." Samuel didn't answer. He kept driving, his grip firm on the steering wheel. His eyes were locked forward, jaw clenched, lips pressed tight. The car creaked as it bumped over rocks and potholes, the only sound accompanying them apart from the low hum of the engine. Moments later, he stopped, dead in the middle of nowhere. The bush was tall and wild, palm fronds whispered in the wind, the kind of place snakes sleep and secrets stay buried. Samuel stepped out of the car without a word, clutching the black nylon bag he had tucked beneath his seat. Inside, the bottle of Sniper and rope.